Welcome to the Phantom Zone.
And now, comics.
Hello and welcome to And Now Comics. I am Gonzalez. Joining me this week, we have John Seiler.
Man, I don't know if this podcast should be moved to After Dark because the X-Men this week be fucking.
And Ryan Fretz.
I'm dead inside.
Soon to be joining us at some point will be Connor Irving. So let's get started with the news before we dive deep into our final issue of House of X.
I think like one of the more uplifting news of like the last week was it was revealed that the New York Times will be reinstating its the graphic novel's bestseller list going forward, which I think is like really important. About 4 or 5 years ago, New York Times decided to just like discontinue it for completely like unknown reasons. Like it even sounds like people within the New York Times like did not want it to taken away. And I feel like the New York Times graphics bestseller list is like a really important gauge of like what books are like really big outside of just Diamond. Because also it was revealed that the overall best-selling book of September was Guts by Raina Telemager, which man, she's like it's like really funny because we always like talk about like who the biggest like comic creators are in comics, and sometimes we'll say like Jason Aaron or Hickman or Donny Cates or Jeff Johns, but it's like Raina is like the biggest. It's like by like leaps and bounds. Like every book that she sells is like a bestseller. Always does like a ton of sales. It's always like really big, and for Guts to be like the number one book of last month, I think is really big for the comics industry.
Yeah, that is like it's huge. I think it's showing like how like the kind of crossoverness of comics at this point in time that they've kind of like crossed the line.
Yeah, I also like didn't realize how big Dogman was a book by Dave Pocky. Like I see like Dogman books like all the time at like stores. But I guess it's like a new book from the creator of Captain Underpants. So like all the people who are like big Captain Underpants fans have like moved on to Dogman, or Dogman has like found like a new audience outside of Captain Underpants. So, yeah, like kids books are like selling like super great, and it's just how it's like it's just like kind of like how does the comics industry like not capitalize on like these new readers?
Yeah, I kind of don't. I guess it's like one of those things that's like hard to see because it's like those books are different from like the superhero books, which most people think of when they think of comic books. But I think it's also a lot of this growing is because people are able to look online and kids are so much online. So like I wonder, do they count like digital sales for New York Times bestselling list?
I could not tell you.
Yeah, I don't know.
I assume these are all from like booksellers.
Which is basically Barnes & Noble and like Amazon?
Barnes & Noble, Amazon, I assume like Ingram numbers are also like brought up. I know Baker and Taylor used to do comics up until just recently, so maybe Baker and Taylor also. Like Ingram and Baker and Taylor are also like wholesalers to comic shops because like, when I worked at a shop, there'll be like a really hot book that maybe was in Diamond, and you would try ordering it, and then Diamond's like, yeah, it's out of stock, and they would never restock it. So there were like a lot of non-big four books that we had to like order through Baker and Taylor because like otherwise we would just never be able to get them.
That makes sense.
Sorry for the late introduction, but I did Google that because it was interesting. They do count digital sales into New York Best Time sellers, but they count their sales as less.
That's good and dumb.
Yeah, I know. I don't know why they do that, but that's old media for you.
So to take this outside of comics, there was like a big kind of like quote unquote,
we don't do that here.
Controversy surrounding the DJ Khaled album that came out earlier this year. Because like the DJ Khaled album like did not get number one on the bestseller. I think it lost to like the Billie Eilish album or the Lil Nas X album. I forgot like what it was, or actually it could have also just been he sold less than Tyler the Creator. I think that's what it was. But it was one of those three. But basically,
It was Tyler.
he like raised up this big like to do because Billboard counted like less of the digital sales of the DJ Khaled album because he was selling it along with some kind of like energy drink. So if you bought
Yeah, it was an energy drink.
so if you
Oh,
bought
I
like
kind of remember this.
so if you bought X amount of this energy drink, like you got a DJ Khaled album, which just seems like
I hate that deal. Like, I would pay more to not get that.
so. Like he was like what the hell like, and it's like he played the game and lost, and it was like very sasatisfying.
Well,
But
it's
it
like-
kind of, but it's like if someone were to count like less of a digital sale, like I feel like that's the reason why.
Yeah, because they actually remind me, it's like, oh, well, would they count that for all those U2 albums that got forcibly downloaded on everyone's iPhone a couple years
Yeah,
ago?
man.
Would those
Yeah, like
count
that
as
Get a little
U2 album.
Bono.
Yeah.
The U2 album I did.
No one wanted it,
So
but we
that
all
kind of
got
makes.
it.
I guess it's different in books though. It's not like you're not getting a free book. I do think it's kind of like at least they count them, and I'm guessing that is why like comics is probably way bigger digitally than like some other like books. At least the
Well-
audience is way more online, so like I'm sure that helps.
I mean, also Scholastic is like the biggest. It's like it's like we talk about like Image being the number 3 comics retailer in the United States. Like Scholastic has got to be the number 3. Like
I'm also
Scholastic,
sure that schools just started, so I wonder if that's a book that schools would be buying a ton of.
probably.
So I'm sure that probably helped a lot.
Yeah, I remember seeing books like this all the time when I was a kid.
Yeah, there was like a writer, an artist I really loved. She did a book called Hench Girl, and then she did like a book for a Dark Horse. I completely like forget the name of, but she ended up doing a Scholastic book last year, and I was like, man, good for her, man. She got made now.
Yeah.
She's got that Scholastic book fair money.
I mean,
That's good money. I'm not mocking anybody. That's like great
Yeah.
money.
I feel like
Yeah.
I want to say like because Gaiman's done some like weird stuff like that. Has he done anything with Scholastic? Because we started.
He usually goes through like traditional publisher routes, like along the lines of his label, because I think he has his own publisher,
Although this
or he
just
works like with one of those old English
this
ones.
just inspired me for like a question like for like sell me a book. It's like an artist that would never write a children's book that you would love to read their children's book.
Oh, that's a really good one too.
Well, okay, so like I was also going to bring up like it's like kids books being big, and like and DC's doing like their Zoom and Ink line, and I feel like that's like them trying to tap into the young adult line, which is like really good. But it's like manga's getting like really big, and I'm kind of surprised like no one's like trying to capitalize on that. I totally forgot like to bring up this story. Also, is that Marvel Comics and Shonen Jump announced a collaboration for this month of like the Shonen Jump app, where they're going to have Marvel hero stories written and drawn from Japanese creators, and some of them that they've announced is the first chapter is going to be written and drawn by Yu-Gi-Oh creator Kazuki Takahashi, which Yu-Gi-Oh creator.
Yeah, I
doing
saw
Marvel
his
stories is pretty weird.
Spider-Man. I saw his Spider-Man go viral like a couple weeks ago, and I thought it was just like one of those one-off things. And now I am so excited.
So yeah, the book will be, or like the story will be called Secret Reverse Part 1, by Kazuki Takahashi, out September 4th. The next one is called Gag Reel by Hachi Mizuno from Octon Wars, and that's coming out September 18th. Interview with Heroes by Ken Onong of Lady Justice, out on October 2nd. Samurai by Shanashiro Kasama and Haruyu Usagi, from a book called Tatsuki Hagi Quest, coming out October 16th. The one I think is like going to be really cool is Halloween Avengers by Mato of Darling in the Franxx. And the image has like a Spider-Man, so it's like Spider-Man with eight arms, and 8 eyes and like a mummy Captain America and an Iron Man in the shadows behind him.
Hmm.
And then the last book is called Ant-Man Plus by Toyotaka Hanada from Lochimen. So it's like, like the Darling of the Franxx artist is like pretty big. The other ones I'm not like super familiar with, other than the Yu-Gi-Oh creator, but it's like we're like one step away from like the My Hero Academia artist doing his own Marvel story, or one doing the creator One Punch Man, and Mob Psycho 100 doing his own Marvel story, and it's like I feel like that's like the biggest way you get like people like manga fans into your Marvel stuff.
Which, yeah, like you were saying, like somehow manga and anime is way bigger for younger kids than like comics or anything like that now.
Yeah, I got into anime or manga before I got into comics. It was more accessible, oddly enough.
So I was in school, I was teaching last couple of days, and like kids asked me, like, "Oh, do you watch Naruto?" I'm like, "I've watched Naruto." They're like, "Have you watched JoJo?" And I was like, "Actually, I have watched JoJo."
Those kids are rad.
Yeah, and so like one of them, like literally, like they were like, talking, and then it's like, "You're not JoJo, you're goddamn Dio," and I was like, "Dio Brando," and I just started laughing, and so like they're like
because
way more into that.
I mean, it's it's like Crunchyroll is like a really cheap way to like watch anime now. Libraries carry manga super heavily, like a lot more. Because I mean, like also the manga is like super cheap. It's easy to stock.
It's also if you're getting into something that's been around for a while, there's hundreds.
So
like Naruto is gigantic, and that's not even like a big one. It's not like One Piece.
When I stopped reading Naruto in middle school, this is like maybe 6 years ago. No. Like 10 years ago. They were at like chapter 400.
Yeah, it only ended, quote unquote, like 2 years ago.
Yeah,
and then it's continued with his son now, so it's really not ended.
Mm-hmm.
Well, One Piece is still going, and that's like almost
One
like
Piece
isn't it like
is at the like halfway point.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we want to save this for what we've been reading this week, but I kind of just like decided, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get caught up on One Piece, and and that's what I've been doing because I don't know. Do we want to save this for later?
No, you can say it real quick.
So I was reading like One Piece like as it was coming out in the United States initially, because I got like super bored of Bleach, and I was like really loving it, and One Piece like super blew up, and Viz was like trying to get caught up with like the Japanese releases so they weren't like super far behind, because like at that point the One Piece English releases were about 2 years behind. So right I was getting into Skypiea, they just started releasing like 3 a month to just like get caught up, and I like fell super behind because it was just like very overwhelming. And then like Skypiea also wasn't like a very good arc, so I was just like and I it was like one of those things where you fall super behind, and I've been like potentially like kind of like looking at One Piece as like as it goes on. There's stuff I've liked, and I was just like, you know what, I have a Funimation account, let's watch this. So I started basically at the point where I left off, which was like the very beginning of Skypiea, and I have like a little cheat sheet that also like tells me like what are the canon episodes and what are the filler episodes. So I just like kind of just like watching the canon stuff, and I was also like right to give up on Skypiea because Skypiea like is really bad. Like I don't like it at all. I don't know. Does anyone else here read One Piece?
No,
not in a long time.
Not in a long time, dude.
So One Piece is like super strong. Like the opening is like really good opening, and then you have like a couple different arcs like after that like start introducing like characters to the crew or like concepts of the world or like these other things. Like there's like one of my favorite early on One Piece arcs is they like try to find a cook for the for the ship, and they end up like basically at this like gas station hub of ships, and in the middle is this really famous um restaurant, and the cook who ends up becoming a member of the crew is like a chef there in training. And this guy, like this villain, shows up named Don Krieg, and he basically just kind of like ruins our heroes, like, and our heroes like put up like a pretty good fight, and like almost beat him, but like like, you know, just barely beat him. But he's like he gets up and he does his like, you know, his final like, you know, like, oh, like you guys are nothing. And then all of a sudden, out in the distance, this swordsman shows up.
Oh, Hawkeye.
And yeah, Mihawk shows up and like destroys Don Creek like he was nothing. And it's like it's like the idea that's like, you thought, it's like you guys are part of like this part of the sea, and this is like where your guys are at. This guy that you just met is on a whole different level, and there are like a lot of people who are as strong as him. And it's like the idea just like kind of blows your mind. You're like, of like how big this world really is. And it's like the creator of One Piece does like a really good job of just crafting like how expansive and great this world is. So getting to Skypiea, it's just like the villains are kind of boring, the island's kind of boring. The main villain's like sucks. Like he's not good. And I'm just like, and I'm just like working my way through because I know there's like stuff that's like pretty good after it. And then like I get to the following arc with like the Foxy Pirates, and it's just like this really fun madcap like group of episodes that have like no stakes whatsoever. It's just like having a lot of fun after a big arc like Skypiea. And then you get to Water 7, and it's so good. And now I'm at like Ennie's Lobby, which is like like when you like ask people what are the best arcs of One Piece, a lot of people in their top 5 will have Ennie's Lobby within it. And Ennie's Lobby is basically like the gateway to a giant prison. Like, you don't see the giant prison in this arc. Like, that comes like 2 arcs later, with Impel Down. But it's like the idea that it's like you're at the gateway of this giant prison that's ran by the world government, who are total dicks. And it's just like you're just like, it's like he's really good at creating like super hateable villains you want to see get destroyed, like really great like heroic characters who are like a little goofy and maybe like don't take certain things like as seriously as you kind of want them to sometimes. That's kind of the charm of it. And it's just like a really kind of fun like it's like I feel glad that like I'm deciding to like get caught up on it, because like I kind of miss like having like One Piece in my life, and I remember like everything that I loved about it. Scene.
Okay.
No, I like that. That was very nice and very well thought on anime.
Yep. Do we want to go to the next couple of stories?
Yeah, let's do it.
Valiant Comics announced that they're bringing back Quam and Woody in 2020, which by Christopher Hastings, Ryan Brownie. Christopher Hastings is the writer for the Unbelievable Gwenpool, so it's like really great comedy writer. Quam and Woody is like the Valiant. I guess they're like Blue Beetle and Booster Gold. It's not like the same kind of dynamic, but it has like the same kind of, you know, comedy to it that you kind of expect from that team. And there have been like several different Quam and Woody comics within the new Valiant brand. And like I tried like most of them, and I think like most of them are like pretty fun. But you know, it's just like one of those things where like I don't read a whole lot of Valiant, so I just like fall behind. And I really should check out Valiant. They have like a lot of really cool stuff, like Faith, and a bunch of like odds and ends series. I thought were like kind of cool, but yeah, new Quam and Woody in 2020.
I'm always down for a new comedy book, so that looks exciting.
Yeah. Archie Comics announced that they're going to have a new creative team for Archie going forward by Mariko Tamaki, who's like really good. a lot of people probably know Mariko Tamaki from her Marvel work with She-Hulk and X-23. She wrote a really good Supergirl series a couple of years ago called Being Super. But she has like a really big book that kind of came out this year. Like I'm halfway through right now, called Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up with Me.
I love that title so much.
Yeah, it's really good. Like I'm kind of just like slow burning it right now, but it's a lot of fun. But yeah, so she's going to be taking over with Archie, which will be a new #1, but it'll keep the legacy number. So it's technically, so in the top corner it says Archie Comics 710, but #1 of 5. And this new team will basically be writing a Archie and Katie Keene story. Katie Keene's like an old Archie character. A lot of people recognize her because she has her own show now on the CW.
Yeah, she's part of the Jesse from the Pussycats like spin-off show, I believe.
There's a Jessie and the Pussycat show?
I think they're doing it. I think she's part of it. But like she's not part of the Pussycats anymore. It's like that character.
Yeah, and like I don't know. So the last creative team that we had on was Nick Spencer, and it was announced that he was going to do 700 going forward. And the big hook of that issue, or like that story, was that Archie and Sabrina were going to be dating, and so the book was basically Archie and Sabrina. And now the book is Archie and Katie Keene, so like Archie and Katie Keene are now dating, and it's like I don't know if I want to read like an Archie book that's based on like whoever he's dating at the time. But there's like a lot of upsell with Mariko Tamaki as the writer. I don't know if I'll check it out, but I'm glad that she's getting work.
Okay, yeah. So the show is called Katie Keene, and it is a musical dramedy.
You said musical, and I'm like way more interested in this show because I thought basically like all those Archie shows on CW were just like a bummer fest.
No, there's a lot of music in it. She's being played by Lucy Hale, who was the star of Pretty Little Liars.
Yeah, okay. Like that was a long-running CW show.
That wasn't on CW.
Was it?
No, that was on whatever ABC Family is or was.
Okay, yeah, I get those two mixed up.
Yeah, they're kind of similar. The little ABC Family, what I can't remember what it's called now, is like several years kind of younger, pointed at, and also Disney. So it's, and I just derailed us. So
oh no, it's fine. I guess there's new Warhammer comics coming from Marvel Comics.
I'm so excited about this.
Yeah, I have two old roommates who were like really into tabletop gaming. And they were both into Warhammer, and I know Warhammer has like a ton of just novels and back matter and lore.
It's intense.
Yeah, so like I don't know, like there's no creative team, there's no like what these books are gonna like do or like what they're gonna tell, but basically it's like, you know, we got the license, we're gonna do something with it.
Yeah, it looks like it's in the Warhammer universe, which is their fantasy side. I was hoping a little bit more 40K because I'm a power armor nerd. But other than that, this is very exciting. I'm excited to see what they do with this. I hope like throughout Comic-Con this weekend, we maybe see something or hear something more.
Yeah, that was like the other thing. It was like New York Comic-Con's this weekend, and there's going to be like a lot of stuff announced.
Next week is going to be mostly news.
Yeah.
And powers.
Yeah.
Or house.
Powers.
Yeah,
it's the final one, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the final one.
Yep.
I can't wait for like a hardback, like a nice hardback to come out of that.
Yeah, it's $60.
Oof.
That's not that bad if it's a hardback.
I think there's still pre-orders on Amazon for it.
Especially since the book was like so well done.
That's true. That is very true.
So the next story is that so like there was an announcement like early on this year that Marvel announced a partnership with Serial Box. They make like prose fiction, and that they were going to be doing like a lot of Marvel stories with like classic characters. And this week they announced one of those first series is going to be called Thor Metal Gods, which is obviously about Thor and Loki. And it'll be like coming out in December. The big thing about it that I'm like really excited about is that the writing staff is Aaron Stewart Ahin, Brian Knee, Yoon-Ha Lee, and Jay Edidin. Jay Edidin is the co-creator and host of Jay and Miles Explain the X-Men, which is like one of my favorite podcasts out there. Basically, they explain the history of X-Men through weekly podcast. If you go to like their first episode, it's basically the first 4 issues of X-Men, and the newest episode this week was X Factor, whatever number in 1994 or 1993. Like they're just like right around the corner to the Phalanx Covenant.
Oh.
So like, so it's like if you want like a really good crash course in X-Men history, it's Jay and Miles Explain the X-Men.
Cool. I'm gonna go download the first episode right now.
But so these writers are going to be writing this prose fiction series about Thor, and so the synopsis is Thor and Loki embark on a cosmic odyssey to stop the return of an ancient evil. A space adventure of epic scale, metal gods propels Thor and Loki on a quest to recover a dangerous alien artifact together with a Korean tiger goddess, a charismatic gender fluid space pirate, and a frost giant merchant. The sons of Odin must each confront their past and face truth behind the destruction of a planet that Thor once tried to help. Tinged with humor, celestial horror, complex relationships, space battles, barroom brawls, and blasts of sheer fun. So, I'm probably going to check this out.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. And I'm trying to think. So, is there any other stories besides the Excalibur one?
Not that I know of.
All right. So let's hit that, and then that'll kind of tie into House of X.
Yeah. So because House of Power about to end, you're starting to see like a lot of promo images for like a lot of these different series, and one of them was for Excalibur, which is the team of Rogue and Psylocke and Gambit and Apocalypse. I forgot like the other.
Isn't that one of the ones with like Nate Gray?
Possibly. But basically, this teaser image is Apocalypse looking upon the new nation of Krakoa with the tagline "Some mutants are never satisfied." ...
Yeah.
And it's like, man, that Ensabanur can't be happy.
Well, yeah, and based on what some of the things we see in this one, so the story I had is another one of those images that ties, I think, directly into this.
Ooh.
For Marauders. Sorry.
Okay, yeah.
Which is an offer you can't refuse, and it's Emma talking with Shadowcat, Kitty Pryde.
Yeah, man. That Marauders book is probably the book I'm looking for.
I'm looking forward to young X-Men or new X-Men, whatever it is, the kids
New
one.
Mutants.
New Mutants, yeah, that one looks awesome.
This is one of the other images I guess they like tweeted out.
That's the cover for issue 2. And it's like it's the one with Sebastian Shaw and Emma Frost moving the ships like on the map, and the red ship is Kitty Pryde with on like their new ship being moved towards a bomb.
Yeah. So, which I think is a good way to get us into, because when we're like going through House of X and we kind of go through the different aspects of it, we will get to the parts of the different houses. Is that what they're called?
I think there were the seasons like fall, spring.
Yeah.
Except one was substituted for like Krakoa.
Yeah. Oh, the council, the Quiet Council. Yeah, they're all the groups. So, but they don't name them, but yeah, they're the season. So in this issue, so this is the final issue of House, issue 6. So this issue takes place 1 month before all of the stuff that we've been doing in all of the other House issues. And
it starts that way.
Yes. I think that's the entirety of the issue.
It actually, I'm looking at it right now. It says Krakoa now at the halfway point.
Okay.
Right after the Quiet Council bit.
Okay. So we start off by seeing a character we haven't seen for a while, which is Moira, in the secret cradle of Krakoa. And basically it's her, Xavier, Magneto, kind of standing around, although we still do not see Xavier's face. We get kind of like a chin, and that's it, of the Cerebro helmet. And basically Xavier's like, this is like a blind step, like there's no going back. This basically means total commitment, and Moira and Magneto are both like, yep. And before Xavier puts it on, Magneto basically is like, all the shit between us that's ever happened, it's done, period. And then we get the smirk from Xavier with the hand, and then he pops on the helmet and basically calls all of Earth to tell them, basically, we have these cures, we have all the drugs that we've talked about, and in the past I would have given them to you because I want to find his... so in the past, they would have been a gift, something freely given by me to you, because I believed in harmony. It would create harmony between our two peoples. That was my dream, harmony, but you have taught me a harsh lesson. That dream was a lie. You see, all I ever wanted was peace between humans and mutants. All I ever wanted was to love you and for you to love us. We wanted to save you, and we did, many times, but in return, all you did was stand by while evil men killed our children, which, over 16 million of them. That is on the panel with Cap, Iron Man, and Black Panther.
Which they totally did.
Yep. And then it cuts to the Fantastic Four, so there will be no gift, for you have not earned it. You got Xavier with his pimp-ass beard. We will, however, let you pay for it, and then we get Doctor Strange looking up at some doves. And basically says, like, you're going to recognize Krakoa, just like the UN thing, and then also, all mutants by birth are Krakoan citizens, and they will not be punished by human laws. They will be because you guys are biased. And then we see Omega Sentinel, and then the characters that were on Mothermold. And then another character who we have not seen that's in this orange panel. And I was wondering if any of you knew who this was.
I'm actually pulling that up so I can see who that was. Was it the page like right after that?
No, it's like right after the first two images. The third.
Yeah, so the first one is Omega Sentinel, then it's the husband and wife from Mother Mold, and then there's like a guy with like a helmet on. And
Are you sure that's not like Xavier with like a prototype helmet, or is it like?
What if it's one of the one or two clones of Xavier?
Yeah,
that's what I was thinking. It looks like, because he definitely has like a helmet on, you can't see his eyes.
Because we know at this point there's been he moved his body into three different bodies.
Mm-hmm.
He's gotta have fallbacks, contingency plans.
So, but it has like, so to describe it, it's like he has like this helmet, some wires coming off, and then kind of like a metal shoulder band.
Yeah,
I will say the helmet is very Weapon X looking.
Yes, that's what I was thinking, and I was wondering. And the face kind of looks like an older man. It doesn't necessarily look... It's hard to tell, obviously, because it's a mask. But it's also like... It's not like a full helmet. It looks like a visor that goes to like something to the back of the head. Because it looks like that's his forehead.
I agree with you. That does look like his forehead.
So I have no idea who this character could be. And knowing Hickman, this could be anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So then we go down and we see him talking. We are the future. We're inevitable. We are Earth's true inheritors. It's with Magneto. And then Moira... So you closed your eyes last night believing this world was yours forever. That was your dream, and like mine, it was a lie. Here's a new truth. While you slept, the world changed.
I love that line.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I love this. I love that.
I just love how he just calls out the whole planet. Like,
yeah, he's just like,
it's happening. There's nothing you can do.
Here's our giant dick. We're the mutants. Fuck off. We tried to play nice. I was the nice guy. And now I'm done playing nice.
It kind of reminds me of Arya from like the Nuclear Instinct game, because like her whole thing. So like Arya was like the leader of Ultratech, which are like the big evil organization within like that universe, and it's like they see like all this shit that's about to go down, like all this primordial evil that's about to show up on Earth, and it's like they care so much about humanity that it's like this shit's about to happen and a lot of people are going to die. So unless it's like I physically like have to pull you kicking and screaming to like get better, because if you're not going to survive this. And I love this idea that like Xavier is like, I'm done. This is how it is. I'm tired of being stepped on. I'm tired of our people being stepped on. Like, this is our nation. Like, we've destabilized your drugs, like the pharmaceutical industry. Like, if you want some, you're more than welcome to have some, but you're gonna have to pay for it. And it's like, now we have power. And it's like, it's time for you to like look at us seriously and not as victims. And I love it.
Mm-hmm. I love that we finally get a glimpse at like the other Marvel characters, like outside of like the mutants.
Yeah.
And
'Cause I mean,
they're like, oh, like, because we don't really, the only people whose faces we really get a good glimpse at is the Fantastic Four.
yeah, because I mean, like, okay, so like, I feel like I'm probably like the longest reading X-Men fan here, and I got into X-Men around the time of like New X-Men, where like the X books were like a Harry Potter kind of book, where like you had all the young X-Men being in different factions at the school, and then M Day happened, and the majority of the students all lost their powers, and they got sent on to the bus to kind of go head back home because like at that point like the parents were like, oh, my kid doesn't have mutant abilities anymore, oh, of course they can come home. So they put the kids on the buses to head back to the families who actually want them now, and the purifiers showed up and blew up the buses, killing like hundreds of students. And this big attack happens. The X-Men, like, who are like, who are still there, who still have their powers, fight off the purifiers, try to help whatever students are there. Like, a bunch of them like lose their lives. And there's like this really great issue that happens later, and I forget like what the event. I think it was Civil War actually, where
Well, yeah, in Civil War, the mutants are basically under house arrest at the X-Men.
yeah, and Miss Marvel, Carol Danvers shows up to the X Mansion and like asks Emma Frost for them to register. And Emma's like basically like, excuse me? It's like, and she's like, well, you guys are dangerous, blah blah blah. Like, it's probably best if you guys were to register for your safety. And like Emma like psychonically puts the image into her head of Emma like trying to save these students who are bleeding out in her arms. It's like, where was the Avengers when this was happening? Where were the Avengers when Genosha was happening? And so like that was like always like a thing that always stuck out with me, was it's like all these atrocities are happening to the X-Men, but like the Avengers, whoever, like never show up to try and help. And like for like this book to happen where they finally stand up for themselves, and then you hear like the people like there's like a certain amount of people who are just like, well, they just sound like bad guys. I'm like, why? Because they're standing up for themselves, because they're trying to take in shit. Like, yeah. I feel like this is valid.
Yeah, because it's the whole thing of Moira's thing. It's like, oh, like basically showed Xavier, your way will never work. It just can't work.
That was also a tidbit on when like AVX happened and like the Avengers all swarmed that island to get to Hope. There was like a brief like 3-page panel of Cyclops talking to Captain America, and Cap's like, we need to take her into custody, and Cap's just like, you say you're not like racist or like bigoted or whatever, but like you never helped a single mutant like ever. And Cap's just like, that's not the time for this. And Cyclops is just like, well, now's the time. He just like shoots off a giant optic blast at him, and that's how that whole battle starts, which was very satisfying.
And I mean, and to be honest, it's like these characters exist because of like the writers who write them within their story. But it's like, it's like Captain America is a guy who fights for the American people, and that's like his entire story. That's his character. But it's like, and it's like he defends like, and to be fair, it's like in the past he's defended, people of color, people of different backgrounds, and all this other stuff. But I feel like, and it's like, anytime like it becomes like a point where he like has to try and defend like the mutant metaphor, like they never really like pull the trigger for him to be able to like defend it. And I don't know.
The most I can remember is when Cable did his Mutant Island and Cap went there undercover.
Nation X, or
is that what it was called?
Well, there was like a time where Kieran Gillen was writing the X-Men books, and their home base was in San Francisco, and they had Nation X.
No, this was not then. Cable like had a satellite that crashed, and he turned it into like an island nation. And I think in like I can't remember who else was on the team, but yeah, like Cap showed up like undercover to investigate it because they're like, yeah, you're like a superpowered mutant with future tech. The entire world is shitting their pants about like you having an island. And he's like, yeah, are we doing anything? He's like, no. He's like, yeah, well, guess what? In my timeline, you didn't do shit either. And like was basically like, you could stay if you want. Like, I'm not gonna bust your balls, but like, you have never done anything.
Yeah, well, in Magneto, if anyone it has a bone to pick with Captain America, it's Magneto, a man who was a victim to the Nazi genocide, and Captain America, like, I mean, it's not his fault he fell into an iceberg, but Captain America wasn't there at the end of World War II.
Mm-hmm.
So side tangent. We basically get what the Council of Krakoa is now.
Yes,
and so
we guessed almost all of the names right.
So
I think the summer group we did not guess because we were like, but Apocalypse.
Well, Jean Grey was on there, and so was Storm, but not Nightcrawler. That was that kind of threw me through the loop.
I think Nightcrawler is the one that like, why Nightcrawler?
So I think
if anything.
No, he's the more like you. Whether you believe in faith or not, I think it's good to have somebody of all sorts of ideologies and outlooks on life to have on something like this, and he very much expresses it.
He's the biggest moral barometer on the team.
Yeah, that's a much more eloquent way of what it. Yeah,
and I think like it also makes sense when you kind of see how this team is like broken up, where you have the House of Autumn, which is Xavier,
basically
Magneto, and Apocalypse.
The three biggest names of mutantdom.
And then you have the House of Winter, and I say house, like, I mean...
Yes, it makes the most sense to call it houses.
The House of Winter, which is Sinister, Exodus, and Mystique, who kind of, like, represent, like, the Marauders, the Brotherhood, like, the Outsiders. You have
the morally gray.
Yeah, you have the House of Spring, which is Sebastian Shaw, Emma Frost, and a still unnamed person who I think is
credited as the Red King. But as we said before, everyone basically thinks is
Kitty Pryde.
Kitty Pryde.
And that basically represents the Hellfire Club.
Which is basically going to be, we'll get into it more, but like they're kind of the economic branch of this council.
Yeah, they're the launderers. And then you have the House of Summer, which is Storm, Jean Grey, and Nightcrawler, and they kind of represent not only like the X-Men, but also like I feel like the main protectors of Krakoa.
Speaking of Jean Grey, I loved that they gave her like her Miss Marvel like original costume with the big eye visor, with like the monarch gloves
she's
and like
rocking
goggles.
that like that 70s look.
Yeah. And it's still kind of like not brought up like why like that's her look, because like her X-Men Red costume is really good, but I still kind of feel like that's like a little bit of like question. But
I think it's because this is supposed to be pre-Phoenix Jean. I feel like that's what they're going for. This is Jean sans Phoenix.
But okay, I think it's like her like trying to like go back to like before she was Phoenix, but I think depending on based off of like what we saw later with her and Emma, that is a older, wiser Jean Grey.
Yes, which is weird because she still is super young. But I guess that's the whole cloning thing that they kind of are all in their 20s. But Emma,
that's what I was asking about because like, did they age Wolverine back to like 200, or they make him like 40 when he's still like a menace?
I think I think they're physically in their prime.
Okay, that makes more sense.
And then we have the House of Krakoa, which is Cypher and Krakoa, and Cypher's is basically like hanging out in the back, which I kind of like.
Yeah,
he's just chilling on Krakoa. Like
he's like the regular dude inside of the powerhouse that is the council.
I actually had a conversation with a coworker today, like trying to explain Cypher, and it's like really funny because like Cypher kind of used to be like the butt of jokes where it's like, oh, like he just understands languages, like what a weird lame mutant power. Like it's like if you look at like worst X-Men power sets lists in like the early 2000s, like Cypher would always be on there.
Which
But
is
it's
funny
like-
because his power, basically because of our like real life technology, is now one of the best powers.
Yeah, and so it's like really interesting to just see like the evolution of Cypher, Doug Ramsey as a character as time has gone on.
Well, Cypher, besides technology aspect, like if he decided to study magic, it would be like pretty simple since he would know all dead languages as well as like magic circles and whatnot.
And then we have the Great Captains, and it's explained while the Quiet Council is the recognized ruling authority on Krakoa, where there is a state-related excursion, or in times of conflict of war, the Great Captains of Krakoa assume the responsibilities of the defending state. In the field, a captain has total control. Among the captains, the captain commander is considered the first among the equals. The captain commander currently is Cyclops, and underneath is Gorgon, then Bishop, and then Magic. Gorgon is a big red flag, but everyone
We saw him in the last issue. He's the giant samurai looking dude
with like his eyes covered with the sword.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
and he's worked with Hydra in the hand. We were talking about this before we started. So he has magic stuff, but his mutant ability is if you make eye contact, you turn to stone.
Oh, great.
But I think like it also kind of like makes sense because it's like if you're Xavier and Magneto and you invite like your biggest enemies to basically have immunity on like this mutant nation, it's like you want to try and at least like we're bringing you in and we also want to treat you as equal to know that like, and so like having the Gorgon as being one of these captains is like the olive branch that shows like we believe in this mission and like these are the rules and we want you to be a part of it.
And again, I have to say, it makes sense because you got Cyclops has always been around, Gorgon who has like all these abilities, Bishop who has like a crazy power set plus like future tech, and Magic who's like a goddamn powerhouse as well.
Yeah, she's a Sorcerer Supreme, which is also very helpful.
She's debatably the second most powerful magician in the Marvel universe.
Mm-hmm. So then
sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, because Cyclops would have been one of the ones I would have thought would have been on the council besides like Nightcrawler and like would have swapped like for Wolverine, but like he's not even.
I kind of get why they're not there though. That's like not who they are really. Like Cyclops is not a philosopher. Wolverine's not a philosopher or like a politician. So like, why would they be under? His two lady people are, which is interesting. Which we'll get into that when we get to that panel. But
there's also like the next page is also like an infographic on like where the seats are and the numbers for where people are at, and then we have like where everyone's seated. And I think it's like a very interesting that number 14 seat, which is Krakoa, has like the same like hashtag like infographic as number 9, the unnamed Red King.
I think
it
that's
could be like a permanent spot or like someone like too important.
My theory is that they are both there, but they are not participating in the meeting actively.
Yes, that I'm with Connor because since Krakoa has to speak through Cypher, he's almost not, or it I guess is a better thing. It can't really participate, but it's observing.
Mm-hmm. So then we get to their meeting, and I think it's like really fun that Emma and Mystique are sitting in the chair in the exact same way.
And I think Jean and Emma are across from each other.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yes, they are.
Let's caddy.
Oh no! Wait, no, they're not. Because Emma, they're across from Magneto, and I think Mystique.
Oh yeah.
Mystique and Nightcrawler are across from each other.
Okay, but I think it's like funny. I think
they're
it's
both
funnier that it's like underneath each other, where it's like.
Well, you see them like they're not sitting straight, so they're turning, and they are like at that angle.
Yeah, well, everybody is specifically looking at Xavier, Magneto, Apocalypse, except for Mystique. Mystique's purposely looking away. No, Sebastian's they're across from them, so Sebastian will be looking directly.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only person who's not facing them is Mystique.
I love how you just see like Apocalypse just sitting there, just menacingly, with his like dead eyes, just staring straight ahead.
So yeah, basically, like they're meeting to basically have like the trial of Sabretooth, which was like the biggest hangup that people had with, and I mean, like they should have, within the first issue of this book where Sabretooth kills a guy, like in trying to do this mission, and then like gets back to Krakoa, and and Cyclops does like the big, was it Cyclops or was it Xavier?
Yeah, it was Cyclops that went to the Fantastic Four, being like,
yeah, and yeah, he's telling the Fantastic Four he has to step up my community, and we'll like deal with him in our own way. Like, don't worry about it. And hey, I'll see your son later if he wants
yeah,
to.
tell him he always has family at Krakoa, and they're just like, oh fuck.
Yeah. So basically, this leads to all of the members of this council, kind of just like figuring out the laws of this new island nation.
Yeah, I really thought this was a really interesting scene too.
Yeah, because I mean, like, you also have just like very differing, like, people, backgrounds of like what they want, what they want to succeed, different goals, and so it's like trying to figure out the rules that like basically have everyone work together. Like Sebastian Shaw is like feels like a guy who just, as long as he makes money, as long as he's in control, he's fine. Like Mr. Sinister is a shit starter. He doesn't really care. He just
his lines are hilarious when they get to it. When he's just like, "Oh, is he talking about me? If he is, I don't care. Like, I wouldn't be ignored. I have ideas. Nobody puts Sinister in the corner. Nobody. And then what's his name? Who's next to him? I always forget his name. Is it Exodus?
Mm-hmm.
Or Acolyte? What?
It's Exodus.
Yeah, and Exodus is like, talk to me again. Do so at your own peril. It's like, oh, that should be against the law. Killing me. Let's throw this guy in jail. Like, Sinister is just roasting, but no one is paying attention to him.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun for him. He's probably doing some weird machination shit back on his...
Yeah, and Apocalypse brings up like a great point, which like Storm and like Jean are like, well, there's like, which Apocalypse is like, well, you can't really, charge someone with murder if like the person they kill comes back to life. And Storm's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And Jean's like, well, that kind of puts in the thing like what our greatest purpose of. It's like, well, should we not killing those who can't come back to life? So that means we shouldn't kill people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Mystique's just like, wait, so we're not going to defend ourselves? And Magneto's like, whoa, chill. If, like, that's a completely different topic of like going to war with people. Like, that's a whole different thing. But yeah, we should not like just go around popping people. And then everyone's like, Apocalypse, and he's just like, yeah, I don't really care about them. Like, this doesn't matter to me because they don't matter to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get the awesome shots of like Sabretooth's like, I see what this is about, blah 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 blah. And then Emma goes quiet, and he's like, And then it's like he's still fighting, and then Jean's like quiet, and he's just
and I wish there was a panel of like Emma and Jean doing like a mental high five.
Yeah.
Maybe it's me, but I read it as different because Emma kind of is like leaned back and she says quite softly, and Jean says it like yelling almost.
Yeah.
I think it's Jean big dogging Emma. Being like, oh, yes, you're a psychic, but that's like one of your powers. Like, she's like, I'm a psychic, and like turns his brain into mush.
Yeah, because you see like Sabretooth still like kind of talking when Emma does it, and then when Jean does it, he just drools all over the place.
Yeah, so I kind of
course Sinister has something to say about that.
Yeah, which, it's funny. And then, and I like Shaw's the one that brings up, well, we got to talk about all these things. He's like, property rights. And then that's when Cypher speaks up with his robot arms, like, well,
probably don't do that.
Yeah, Krakoa's like kind of a living thing with a mind, so you can't really own it. And Storm's like, well, there's like things we could own out there in the world and stuff.
You're free to come and go as you please.
Yeah, but I do like that Exodus is like, seems to be like all in on this shit. Like, he's like, this is Eden. Like, I'm all about this, which we'll see even more when we get to it.
Yeah, so then like Xavier's talking, and then Mystique's like, hold
she
on
raises her hand.
Yeah, excuse me. And she says, but before we are done, we have yet to hear from the righteous among us. Surely the mutant who has faith in one greater than you, Charles, has something foundational to share. Tell us, Kurt, where is your foolish providence in all this? Where is your God's wisdom? And it's like, of course, like Kurt
She's got to
Wagner,
challenge it.
like it's like he's like the moral compass of this team. It's like, look, this team of X-Men went to like actual heaven and found Kurt Wagner as a pirate while they were fighting Azazel. Like if there's like anyone who's like totally like kind of like the moral compass, it's Kurt. And Kurt responds.
Well, the first thing to say is also this is her talking to her son, who she abandoned as well.
Yeah, and so this is what Kurt says. And God said unto them, "Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it." Isn't it obvious? Isn't it, Raven? We need to make more mutants.
With a gigantic smile.
Which by the way, like, okay, we've already set up that, like, okay, low level. We've set up already at this point that the X-Men want to like try and like bring back all the mutants who have ever died, and they put them in eggs because Goldball shoots them out, and they put the DNA in the. Nightcrawler's talking about fucking.
Yeah, man, he's getting dirty with it.
Yeah, the next panel, like Magneto's like, "Holy crap, what is he saying?"
Magneto's like, "Oh shit, I have a daughter here."
The pious man.
And Cyclops like, "I cannot agree more." Now that it's like two ex-wives are like sitting there with him, or like not ex-wives, but you know, former lovers / ex-wives.
Ex-wives, like actual ex.
Yes.
So Xavier's like, "Yeah, that's good." So is what we have perfect? No, what it is. But it's a start. But it's a start, a good one. So as of today, these are the first laws of our nation, and then we get the page of make more mutants is the number one law. Number two law.
What's number one law? Number one law.
We fucking. We fucking.
Yeah.
We fucking.
Number two, don't murder humans. Number three, the land is sacred.
Also, number four, more fucking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So like obviously like. You know, murder no man. I think it's like, you know, it's like whatever. It's like, of course, it's like they want to. I like that. Like their number 3 law is basically like respect Krakoa. It's like
everything that's happening is Krakoa.
Yeah. So like, don't dog on the shit. Like, don't treat Krakoa with disrespect. Like, we are a guest within Krakoa. Like, treat it that way.
Yeah, like no littering. Like that's super frowned upon.
But you can freely ejaculate all over Krakoa.
So after this, we basically get the judgment of Sabretooth. You know, Magneto gave him a job, told him go find this thing, come back, don't hurt anyone. You did, you fucked up. Like you broken one of our rules, you're guilty. Like Apocalypse, you're guilty. Like Sinister is like, you know what? I don't care. He's gone.
He says, "So long, pack light, safe travels to far lands."
Yeah,
he's such a prick.
Exodus, guilty. Like everyone, like
one after another. Like, just get it over with. Yeah, they're all just like, yes. Storm's like, this is long overdue. Even Nightcrawler's like, it shames me, but I agree.
I look Sebastian. He's like, I don't care. Fine, just do it.
I mean, which totally fits with Sebastian Shaw. But, you know, being the island nation of Krakoa, they don't believe in prisons. They don't want to put people in prisons. So basically...
well, yes and no. They're basically like, we can't kill you, because if we kill you, you'll pop up. And then if we let you go, you're just going to, like, fucking do dumb shit out there. Because he says, it's like, I'll find you, I'll kill your children. The whole thing will be extinct. So they're like, so this leaves us with our one thing. Banishment. And he just goes, Douglas?
Also, not banishment, ... exile?
Stasis.
Exile, yes. That was specifically the exile term.
So, so Sabretooth has been exiled into stasis to basically be in the Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, he's in a pod, he exists without existing.
Well, they don't say if he's conscious. Interesting.
No, it says it.
Yeah,
it says it. Alive but immobile, aware but unable to act on it.
Oh, so that's like horrible. That's like
that's torture.
Isolation. Yeah,
That's Demolition Man, where you're just frozen in ice, being awake the entire time.
exactly.
So
How like much of an ending ruiner would it be if like Sabretooth escapes and kills and like ruins the whole X-Men future? I think that's why the future's all messed up.
So I think that there's going to be a mini series because I don't envision this to be like a ongoing. But you know, you don't drop a word like exiled within an X-Men book without it kind of meaning something.
Yeah, well,
And-
isn't Exiles one of the books that they're doing?
They haven't announced it. Exiles is like for the most part has been kind of like situationed as like a out of time stream team book. But the way that Jonathan Hickman like kind of like takes like concepts and ideas and words and then repurposes them into kind of like making more sense, like like the Marauders book is like a book of pirates because they maraud. Like
Well,
the
what I wonder
Exiles,
is,
the Exiles book, instead of them being exiled into different time streams, is exiled mutants of Krakoa.
my thought is, what if the Exiles book, if they make one, is the mutants version of like a Suicide Squad?
Mm-hmm.
I would read that.
Hell yeah.
It's like, oh, here's your like, you have to do so many missions, and then you're like, what do you call, paroled?
Mm-hmm.
You're out.
Yep.
But then, Saber to the second away. The council breaks apart, and then we have a giant party.
We have Burning Man, except there are actual people that are burning. with
Actual
cows.
Burning Man.
Yes.
We have Banshee and Siren like is singing on stage with Dazzler, and then Dazzler shoots out like all these different lights and makes this great stage show.
Yeah, we have the 5 too are rocking out like by a fire.
Yeah,
That's like the first panel
Yeah.
with Prometheus and Gold Balls.
Yeah, like a gold ball shaking his little gold.
Woo!
Yeah, there's like a panel of also like Exodus telling stories around a campfire
To
like,
little kids.
to little kids, which I just think is just
That's awesome.
adorable.
The
I
panel
want that as a
the
comic.
panel that I was liking was like Emma just like scoping out Cyclops when Jean's looking
yeah.
away, giving her
Yeah.
a beer.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Well, so there's one other panel that's funny, which is Iceman is playing a joke on Angel, and Beast is laughing. And then we get to some of the weirder panels. So Wolverine walks up in between Cyclops and Jean with a 6-pack. And it's like, "Sup, you ready for some swinging?"
like he shows up, he puts his arms around the two, but then he like pulls a beer and he walks towards the Gorgon, who is like kind of not a long time Wolverine villain. Like he first shows up in Mark Millar Wolverine, and then he's like a villain within Secret Warriors, and then he shows up every once in a while as a Wolverine villain. And Wolverine like walks up, offers him a beer, and then like the Gorgon like accepts it as they like look upon like this giant party.
Well, they're actually looking directly across back at Cyclops and Jean. Because if you look at the panel, it's Cyclops and Jean on the one side and Emma's on the other by the waterfall.
Yeah.
So they're checking out the situation while
And
drinking a beer.
And so like Cyclops like grabs a beer, he gives it to Jean. Jean looks over, like Emma's just sitting by herself, and then Jean offers her a beer. She takes it. Emma looks over at Scott, and it's like
Well, she looks over at Scott directly behind Jean's back.
Yeah.
But it's like they're both telepaths. You know that there was like a dialogue's worth of like of conversation between them.
Well, and then the next panel is Havoc.
It's just Havoc just laughing at Cyclops.
But Cyclops is dead staring straight ahead, which is basically probably towards Emma.
And I legit like was reading this book, and I like my eyes were welling up. It's like it's like seeing the Summers brothers just hanging out, like having fun. It's just like you haven't seen that in a while, like because Alex is just so miserable, like so many times. It's just like he's happy. I feel like he's like a guy who has found his place because that's kind of like I feel like has been his problem. He's always been trying to find his place in the world. This giant party like continues to happen. Apocalypse comes out. They're standing on some Pride Rock looking fucking thing. Xavier shows up, Magneto shows up, and they're just like, "Look what we have made." And you turn the page, and it's Krakoa. Like,
Yeah, and it breaks down all the stuff.
That line gave me chills. They did it, man. They actually fucking did it.
Yeah, there's a big infographic basically based on all the different areas of Krakoa. There is one blank area. I assume it's Moira's no place because that's like not brought up within any of the other areas within the map.
It's either that or it's Forges.
Yeah. But it's like everything from the House of X, the House of M, the Arena, Danger Island, which is like a training area, Bar Sinister, the Hellfire Bay, which I assume is the home headquarters of the Hellfire Club. A lot of different places. All these places, I assume, will be explained further as the books go on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, some of them are pretty obvious of what they are.
Yeah, well, I would see like Blackstone and the White Palace seem like, oh, Blackstone is probably Sebastian's place, and the White Palace is Emma's place.
And the Red Keep is the Red King's place.
Yep. So, yeah.
I love how they have Danger Island now instead of the Danger Room. It's just a whole island.
Got an upgrade.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Krakoa can make like anything.
And actually, speaking of that, I think I can justify my theory from last week a little bit more now. Last week, I posited that there is, like, when we were looking at the year 1000, humanity is about to be absorbed by this greater mind, right? And my theory was that greater mind is actually mutantdom. And I think I can justify it a little bit stronger because in the last issue, they talk about what makes you worthy of attaining that status. It's knowledge. And humans at that point build a world engine. A machine as big as a world that actually eats a world for power and processing power to get the attention of these creatures. Now, what has Charles Xavier been doing for the past, 10 years at this point, I think? He's been making a copy of every single mutant. That's every single thought and every single accumulated piece of knowledge. And now there is a hidden part of Krakoa, that 18. If it's Forge's lab, I think they're building a world engine, or at least a prototype of it. Getting the jump start. Theory over.
That's very heavy.
Yeah, I know. I'm really into the heavier stuff.
No, I think it's definitely like it's. I don't think that's like I kind of move with you. Like I like that idea a lot. Like I think it's an interesting thing that they would be doing.
Yeah, that's all I got. That's all I could think about this last book when I saw him. Like they made it a very important moment at the start where you don't even see Charles Xavier's face. You don't need to see him.
We still have not seen his.
We still have not seen his face, but we know that the two people closest to him trust the person that's putting that mask on. So I assume that it is either the Prime or the most recent successor to Charles Xavier, like whatever his third body double is.
Yeah, I was thinking like Charles was doing the whole Cuckoo Sisters things with having actual like duplicates just roaming around with him like a hive mind.
That could be, because that was one of the things that they talked about in one of the books was like, in order to do like to bring back all those people, he would need like a psychic would have to be like they would need like an army of psychics to do it within any timeline.
And who's a better psychic than Charles Xavier? Charles Xavier's.
Yeah, and they know that they've been keeping a bunch of bodies around because they need them for Prometheus. The only people that I'm still like, where the fuck are they? So is Cable still technically dead in this world?
It's Kid Cable.
Okay, so we know he's in some of the other books.
I
Yeah,
have
he's
been
an
like
X-Men.
looking for Rogue in every book, and I cannot find her.
Rogue is
And
in
Gambit.
Excalibur. They're both in Excalibur.
Yeah, so we just haven't seen them in this. And then
Yes.
But yeah, Kid Cable's in Fallen Angels in the
he's
main
in two
X-Men
books,
book.
right?
Yeah, because the main X-Men book is like the Summers,
it's
family
Scott-
along with Wolverine, and then Fallen Angels is the original Psylocke, Laura Kenny, and Kid Cable.
Yeah, well, is it the Asian Psylocke, and then the other one is in the book with Magneto, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. So the English Psylocke is in Excalibur, and the Asian Psylocke is in Fallen Angel. But the Asian Psylocke is not called Psylocke. I feel like she has another name.
So what's interesting to me though is so the last page, and we've gotten like images of stuff. Did you see what the image is though? It's Moira with like all the mutants dead around her.
Wait, what?
Yeah, where it's like where it has like the X and then it has like a whole bunch of Krakoan language. It's like the very last page. So after it says like reading order, it has like the other image.
Oh yeah, I actually didn't even look at that page.
Yeah.
What's the dialogue on that page?
It's all in the Krakoan.
Oh,
So it's like you clearly see Apocalypse, Wolverine, Cyclops. I think that's Magic.
And Jean Grey.
Is Jean
That is
there?
Magic. Jean's right next to Cyclops in the bottom right.
Yeah, somebody that might be Colossus,
That's what I was thinking. It looks like Colossus's armor.
and then like a couple other bodies. Yeah. So it's interesting. I don't know if that was a panel shown in a previous book, but usually it's a preview of the next book.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what last week's was, the one with Storm. I think it was like Storm at the table with Jean and such.
Okay. I'd have to go check that out.
So I'm guessing this is a flash to like one of the Moira timelines. Because again, we still don't know what happened at Moira 6.
I think that'll be 6.
And
It looks like it's the cover because I just pulled up the number 5s of House of X's, that last page, and it's the cover of next week's.
okay. So yeah, that will be interesting.
It will be.
Sabretooth just like ruins it for everyone.
Sounds
all
like
the
Sabretooth.
characters. But oh yeah,
I would really like a side issue of it could be like of anything like Avengers or anything like that of just them like dealing with the threat of Krakoa. Like how they did in like AVX, they had like General Ross. Like he deemed that threat too necessary, so he infiltrated that island and just like snooped around the entire time. And it was just nothing but like lore and like story. And it was just nice just to see like how other teams react to like threats that aren't really a threat of just like mutants.
Yeah, I think we will get something like that based on this book. Like I think it seems like this is just like kind of retconning all of like mutantdom and actually like moving everything forward, which is something retcons never do really. So I think we're gonna get like major fallout across like the Marvel books, which makes me interested to buy and read them.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, next week is a red issue.
Yep, and the final issue.
Last issue too.
That's my theory. That's an important one, man.
Yeah, well, so far you've been right because there's 3 red issues.
Yes,
And
there are 3.
X2 was Moira X reveal.
Mm-hmm.
X5 House of 5.
That was when Apocalypse and everybody joined.
Yes.
When like they set up camp, I guess.
Yeah.
And then this next one will probably. I don't think they'll pull down everything that Krakoa has set up just yet. I feel like that'll be a future series.
I think everything's going to stay with Krakoa. I think we're going to find out that Year 1000 stuff, what the hell that is.
Yeah. I feel like that will finally come into play. And I'm interested to see what mine has.
Your theory,
my theory has to say about this.
Mm-hmm. So I think that is a good way to wrap us up. So we have one more issue left.
Mm-hmm.
We'll check out that next week, and hopefully there won't be too much New York Comic Con news to cover. And so we will catch you guys next week. Don't forget to check out all the other podcasts and everything else. If you're listening to this, you know what we're talking about. So
you know where to find us. The usual spots.
Yep. So we will talk to you guys next week.
I love you.
They fucking.
Welcome to the Phantom Zone.
And now, comics.